Hello and welcome once again to the How Long Speak podcast. I'm Rick. As ever, I'm joined by Paula.
Hello.
Who's currently trying to convert her boyfriend to the PS Vita. He's sat playing in the background. That doesn't really convert to a podcast format, but I thought I'd give you that flavour. And Alex.
Hey.
Fresh off making his water face. Again, no context, but it's there now. Recorded forever. So, as always, we're going to talk about what we've beaten, what we've retired, and what we're currently playing. As recent, but not as always, I'm the only person who's beaten retired anything. So if you don't like my voice, maybe skip this episode, but also why are you still here? Once we've done currently playing, we're then going to talk about games becoming defunct. And this is in the context of the 3DS and Wii eShops going down, reminiscing about Flash, various other related things. And then we are going to jump into the latest episode or the latest installment in this, the final game week of the new format of How Long to Beat the Game.
The game.
And speaking of beating games, let's jump straight in. So I've completed 2 games this week, both of which are recent Steam spring sale purchases. Now, I've been quite good for the past 6 months or so. I don't think I bought anything in either of the 2 previous Steam sales. I bought 15 things this time, 14 games and a soundtrack. And the first of the games that I completed is actually a Rusty Lake game. I'm not sure if you're aware, the two of you, that there is one you missed. And in your recent sort of escapades playing through those again, that game is The Past Within. And I think the best way to describe this for those of you listening and for you guys is if you imagine crossing a Cube Escape game with Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes.
To me, what?
So, yeah.
I've
So
heard of
you
this
are
one, yeah.
you are playing asynchronously with your cooperative partner. They are playing in either the past or future. You're playing in whichever time period they aren't. And you are operating in a commingled space. It is very overtly part of the Rusty Lake universe. It references the lake by name, and it has characters that have features in previous Rusty Lake things. To the extent that it's canon, who knows? And I don't really want to talk anything on story because I do think it does touch on some interesting things, both thematically and in a more firm story context. What I will say is this game is for better and for worse a Rusty Lake game. Both players get to experience conventional 2D Rusty Lake. They also get to experience a 3D manifestation of the cube that you're both working with, and interact with it in a Rusty Lake-esque way. And the 3D modeling is clearly a step up for the guys behind the game, and they do quite a good job for a first time effort. It all feels very coherent. It maintains the spirit of what's gone on there. The puzzle setup, despite the fact that you're pinging information back and forth between 2 people, doesn't really deviate from the Rusty Lake mold, and that was mildly disappointing. However, on the whole, this is a really compelling package, I think, for a few pounds each, and you do have to buy individual copies of the game, it's worth saying. It's about an hour and a half runtime, and you can technically see a bit more playing it twice so that you both get to see sort of both halves of it. It does also include different configurations of the puzzle so that you can't just blast through the second time, which I think was useful. Probably one only really to be recommended to people who really, really want something short and co-op and puzzly, and or people who are already somewhat invested in Rusty Lake. I definitely did enjoy my time with it. I don't think it was sort of a knockout hit, but it was good, and it definitely gave me what I wanted from it, which is the main thing. Is this one, I know you said you're aware of this, Alex, is this one either of you had looked at all?
Yeah,
beyond sort of vague awareness, or
purposely passed it up because I was like, I'm not playing this with someone. I just knew I wasn't going to. Like, it's not anything. It's just like I saw the co-op experience and I went, that's neat, but it'll never happen. Like, my partner's way too fucking busy, and getting it installed on it, you know what I mean? It was just like the thought of it made my made me so sad. I was like, I can't do that. It's gonna take too much time. So I just purposely was like, nah, cool that you got it, but I ain't gonna do it.
Yeah, in my case, I
That's all.
saw it existed, but I didn't look into it because I still haven't played the other Rusty Lake game that I forgot the name of.
Paradise, possibly.
Paradise. Yeah, Paradise. And I haven't finished that one and was like, okay, I'm gonna finish that one first and look into the other Rusty Lake games that I haven't played. I didn't realize it was a co-op experience. Now I'm wondering if I can drag someone over here into playing it with me, or if it is the overall humor and tone and shenanigans in the game are a bit too much.
I'd say it's probably a little bit more muted than the main game entries. I think to a certain extent it has to be viable as a co-op experience. It's also worth saying, as well as it existing on PC, it exists on phones as well. And because of the way that they do the setup, you don't have to be directly connected. You just have to be able to communicate with each other. So you could absolutely have one person on computer, one person on phone. It's quite flexible in the way that it lets you set up in that sense. Also quite durable also because you're not reliant on servers staying up or anything like that, because although the experience is shared, the shared progression side of things is through inputting things that are communicated from the other player. So again, no persistent connection required there. Yeah. Second one, bit of a more left field game. Shotgun King, the final Checkmate. Have you ever wanted to play chess, but as a roguelike with cards and buffs and debuffs?
Dear God.
Well, now you can. And it is actually a surprisingly good implementation of that elevator pitch. You play as a king with a shotgun on a chessboard where, broadly speaking, all the other rules of chess apply. So you will be opposing pawns, knights, bishops, kings, queens, rooks. That's all the chess pieces, I think. And they all move in the way that they conventionally would in the game of chess. What mixes it up is you retain a card for the last special type that you killed, allowing you to move once in that manner. So if you just killed a knight, you can move in an L shape by playing that card. You also have the shotgun. The shotgun is reloaded as you move around, so it's incentivizing you to move, shoot, do things that way. As a king, you can't per se just take a piece in the same way that you would in chess, because pieces have hit points. So with a couple of buffs and unlocks accepted, you do have to shoot them with your shotgun to kill them. Killing the king, the opposing king, ends the floor and you move up to the next one. The interesting thing in the main mode is you are moving over 12 floors. Every floor, you have to pick one of a 2-card set. That's a card that buffs you and a card that debuffs you. And those buffs and debuffs are wide-ranging. It might be adding extra opponent pieces. It might be adding a spawn every so many turns if you haven't killed the king. It might be adding limits to your movement or abilities in some way or another. Equally, the buffs might make your shotgun into a sniper until you move at the start of a floor. They might give you a revive each floor. They might give you the ability to hold 2 movement cards, further sort of opening up your abilities and your options there. Now, the game isn't actually that hard, interestingly. I think it probably does give a little bit more to the player than it maybe needed to. I think I won on my 3rd or 4th attempt. It does unlock an endless mode, and there's other ways to sort of play more and get more out of it and see all of the various different pieces that they make available for you. And I think given how short the game is, the normal price is a little bit on the steep side. It comes out, I think it's around about £8 to £10, or your regional equivalent. I got it on a small discount, and I like the concept. I think I'll probably dip my toes in and out of this a few more times as the mood takes me. I think it's a really cool idea, and for the most part, I think it's a success in achieving and implementing that idea. And to a certain extent, it speaks to like what video games can do, right? Like in what other medium could you make shotgun chess a thing that makes any sense or is fun or enjoyable? I would argue none of them. Maybe a book, but you'd have to have a real knack for it to make that make sense over any kind of length of novel. Anyway, let's not get wild with it. So that's both the games I've beaten. I have retired 4 games this week. The first of those is another Steam sale game that I bought and very, very quickly retired. That game goes by the name COCKHEAD. It is the kind of game that presents you with enemies comprised of pigeons with Nazi armbands on their wings and expects that to carry the experience, which unfortunately it just doesn't. Definitely sort of mid-noughties, sort of crass teenage humor. The game is not good at the core. Maybe in an interesting bit of foreshadowing, it does feel like a very poorly optimized Flash game. Like you move and you shoot, but it's all very, very rigid and incoherent. And there are certain elements that I think displayed maybe a semblance of care and love behind this product. There is like big band orchestrated music behind it, which was not standout, but not inoffensive either. And it's a particular choice to go out to do that and implement that. So there's something to be appreciated there, I think. It seems like there is an attempt at a story somewhere, but again, it's just not particularly well implemented. Ultimately, the game's bad. The game is not very good. And I refunded it after about 20 minutes, if that. The second game, another PC game. I've had this one for a lot longer, but I've only just gotten around to it. A game called Get to the Orange Door. This is a first-person parkour experience. I actually expected it to be something akin to Ghost Runner, like a shortish, first-person, runny-gunny, shooty parkour experience, a linear affair. And it seems like this game's had quite a tumultuous dev cycle. It seems like it's, broadly speaking, a solo dev effort. The game that I found before me when I opened it up on Tuesday, I think it was, so nearly a week ago at the time of recording, was more of a roguelike, endless shooter thing. Still first person, still parkour, but very not what I expected. Very aimless and very unresponsive in terms of the feedback it gives you for shooting. And also, it doesn't really give you a lot of direction in terms of how you're going. Now, the game does seem to be early access. I don't know if it started out not and then reverted to early access, because as a general rule, I don't buy early access games. So either I bought it by accident or it has changed situation in the opposite way to the way that normally happens. But I played a run of it, didn't really understand what was expected of me. The controls well enough. The parkour feels not great, but good. Shooting, ditto. But I was in a relatively small space, kiting and bunny hopping and shooting, and felt thoroughly unsatisfied. There's not really much feedback in terms of the shooting. I had no idea what objective I was supposed to be hitting, if any, and I didn't feel any compulsion to carry on. Mostly I just felt a little bit disappointed. And again, some of this might be on me because I had the wrong expectation of the game going in, but I don't necessarily think that's all on me. Nevertheless, that's one I might return to down the line, but I didn't want to play any more of as we stand. And to a certain extent, that also extends to retirement number 3, which is Mark of the Ninja Remastered. This is a game I've already beaten, finished a while back. Did not hook me the second time quite as much as it did the first time. And that's by no means to say it's bad. This is a very, very good game. Very well put together. Very compelling in terms of its gameplay. But as a replaying player, I have felt the draw towards other games I'm playing far more than this. It's also worth saying I'm mindful that imminently Grim Grimoire once more is going to be releasing, and that is something I will be playing on Switch. So the path needs to be cleared for that game. And you put all of those things together, I didn't want to play Mark of the Ninja anymore. And then the last retirement, and this was somewhat of a disappointment for me, Front Mission for the Nintendo DS. I think this might be a case of it's not the game, it's me, mostly. I think some of it is the game, particularly the DS port, which it's worth saying is a port of a Super Nintendo Japan-only turn-based RPG. While they do a very good job of utilizing both screens and spreading a lot of information onto that second screen, what they don't do is give enough, in my view, in terms of quality of life improvements, in terms of making all the pertinent information accessible, or in terms of fully explaining its systems and how it works. So I got to the end of the third mission of, I believe, a 30-mission campaign. And that's one of 2 campaigns that's available in the release. The pixel art's fantastic. I want to lay that out there. The little mechs moving around are great, and I really, truly enjoyed the way that it left the sort of map as you navigate it on the bottom screen, and the top screen was either information or when battles took place, you saw the mechs duking it out. I think my single biggest problem with the game, maybe just above the lack of pertinent information, is the way that combat is handled. So the mechs in this game called Wanzers have separate health bars for body, left arm, right arm, legs. The body is what needs to be destroyed for a kill shot. Obviously, disabling either arm or legs makes attacking impossible or hinders movement, depending. The problem is you have to unlock the ability to target which of those things you want to hit, which makes, certainly in the early stages, which is all I actually played, makes combat very attritional, makes combat very random, in turn makes combat quite frustrating. Not really what you want, particularly from big unit battles where you've got lots of moving pieces and it becomes a little bit of a slog and you feel like your agency is severely limited, actually, in terms of what you're doing. You know, critical hits are one thing because you're attacking a unified health bar. When an opponent in Wanzer's got 2 body and every hit you try and land goes on the arms or the legs and allows the Wanzer to continue to attack, that can feel quite frustrating. And corollary to that, the speed of the mechs wasn't super obvious. So there were a couple of instances where I went to attack a mech, and even with short range, where it's supposed to be that they're on equal footing in terms of priority, the enemy mech would attack first and destroy the component that I had intended to attack with. And again, because there's not real visibility, and because there's no way of intentionally targeting until you unlock that ability later in the game, combat isn't actually all that fun. And again, coming back to the problem of a Metroidvania 8 or too many good games in a genre, I'm acutely aware that I have Disgaea to play. I have Triangle Strategy and Tactics Ogre and a litany of other SRPGs that I'd rather be playing. So it's just not enough to be okay to good, which is what I think Front Mission is. I again, by no means think this is a bad game, and I do wonder, although I'm not a fan of the new art style, whether the recent ports of this game, stroke remakes of this game, excuse me, for Switch, would potentially fix some of these issues. What I expect they wouldn't fix, because it's fundamentally the same game underneath, are the way that combat flows, the lack of early ability to aim at different Wanzer body parts. Maybe one for me to look at in the future. For now, it just didn't work for me, unfortunately. And that's one that I didn't want to continue playing. So I'm not. And my intro has been low-key ruined by the fact that it seems Paula has also retired again. So tell us more, Paula. Why don't you jump on in?
That was horrible, Rick. And
You're
yeah,
welcome.
besides retiring this game while you were talking, just during your beautiful intro, in reality, I just retired Magikarp Jump because I wasn't really playing it anymore, and I wasn't like feeling like jumping back into it. mainly because of how little interactivity you have in the game. And even though like collecting the different makers was kind of fun, having to redo the league each time with each individual Magikarp and go through the, I guess, jumping battles that you already went through, even though you know you're gonna make it because you remember your previous Magikarp being like the weaker than your actual. Sorry, since your previous Magikarp is always weaker than the Magikarp you just caught, then I was like, hey, why can't I just skip the whole thing until the level where I was and then start going through the league again? Because just because how numbers work and how your newer Magikarp is gonna be always a stronger Magikarp, you know you're gonna make it. So that is all I have to say. It was fun while it lasted until it was not. And that's why I retired. And I'm gonna roll into my playings. So this is a funny story. So R2D2, friend of the podcast and friend of the forums, just did one of those how long to beat collections and put like a bunch of games that remind them of me. And the first one was Animal Crossing New Horizons. And it says, remember to buy your turnips. So I was like, fuck, today is Sunday. I haven't logged in a while. So let's see how my island is going. It is horrible. There's weed everywhere. I have to clean up everything. But for the moment, I just went, bought my turnips, and call it a day.
At least the reminder worked.
Yeah, the reminder worked pretty well. The other game that I've been kind of playing, but just a little bit of it, is Pokemon Scarlet. I'm still building up that life box. At 300 and something. I still have to sort some more Pokemon over here. But it is getting there. And then I'll be able to release everything else or surprise trade anything rare and just start to build up my team for competitive Pokemon battle. I haven't been playing Citizen Sleeper a whole lot, so not much to say. Ditto with COCKHEAD Noah. The one game from the Science Adventures that I started, that I wasn't expecting to start so soon, is Steins Gate for the Vita. And what happened was that my boyfriend over here suddenly had, I guess, a craving to play Steins Gate. So we went to pick up my my Vitas from the apartment and downloaded the game on the jailbroken Vita and just put in the cartridge in the other Vita. And the thing is that he said, hey, I knew the game was a visual novel, but I wasn't sure. I didn't know the game was a visual novel, in the sense of he was expecting something more interactive along the lines of Danganronpa or Ace Attorney. And well, the joke is on him because he didn't watch our episode on visual novels and where I said, this is my definition of visual novels. And you can see him right there.
Better like, come on.
A little head shake in the background. I like that.
Yeah. In the end, I got stuck with just playing Steins Gate all by myself. Thank you. That's the whole story. So let me talk to you about Steins Gate because this is a wonderful, wonderful visual novel. As in, well, text visual novel, like just read visual novel. Just to make things sure, like just to make things clear over here. And The thing is that you play as Okabe Rintaro, also known as Hoin Kyoma, as he names himself, since that is supposed to be his true name, according to none other than Okabe himself. And because of reasons, he kind of unlocks time travel, in a way. Just in a very unconventional way, I'm gonna say. And in the game, you pretty much go through changing the past and then try to undo what you just did, because butterfly effect. No shit, if you change the past, the present really changes, and that means there's really consequences to your actions.
Mm.
And like in the first chapter of the game, I already went through the prologue, so I'm soon to be met with my first few interactions in the game, be it proper decision making or text messaging. The thing is, each of the science adventure games has a gimmick. I've avoided talking about the gimmick in COCKHEAD Noah because I want Rick to discover it by himself. But by any
Do the same in Steins Gate. Please don't ruin it.
okay, there's a different gimmick in Steins Gate, and it makes the whole experience a little bit more interesting. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
Thank you, Rick, for speaking before I read it for you.
That's all right. It's literally, hang on, does that shot? It's there waiting. For those of you listening at home, I have my Vita on the screen for Paula. This is riveting content. I know why everyone comes back week after week.
Truly divine content.
Anyway.
Okay, back to the topic. And I have to say, Steins Gate has a very special place in my heart because it was the first visual novel I ever played. So you can thank Steins Gate for all the riveting visual novel and otome content on this channel, or in this podcast. And I have to say, the lead female character has to be one of my favorite characters ever. You'll be here soon, Rick. I know.
Sure I will.
Skipping the rest of the Steins Gate talk because possible spoilers for Rick. I've also been playing Omori. I started this because in one of my friend groups, we kind of have our own game of the month thing. And we kind of like spin a roulette, and whoever gets picked by Lady Luck gets to pick the game for the month. And of course, we take that person off the roulette for next month because otherwise things wouldn't be very fair, I think, if you could just keep choosing the game every month if Lex wishes. So, but anyway. Omori is a weird game because I'm just in the opening hour of the game, so besides it being an RPG, a turn-based RPG to be precise, with an emotion kind of like triangle system, like in like the weapon triangle in Fire Emblem. You have kind of like an emotion triangle in Omori in a way that I still don't understand because I've only played like enough to have like 1 or 2 battles on it. So far, it isn't really grabbing like my whole attention. Maybe the beginning is a little bit slow for my taste, but my friends really insisted me into that I have to give it a bit more of a chance before I drop it completely to see if I really like the game.
Yeah, I dropped
to which I
that
say,
game
okay.
real early.
Since I'm used to slow starting games like Steins Gate, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give it a little bit more of a chance, but I somehow, even though they've really sold me into the game, I feel like this isn't like the game for me. But who knows? Tune in next week and hit subscribe to know when we're uploading new videos, and hit the notification bell.
All of the
to never be
metrics,
south.
please and thank you.
Yeah,
A real YouTuber. I think Omori is one of those games that has a really small and passionate fan base who've made it into something it might not actually be. You know, it's been like hyped
Yeah.
up a lot, and I think it's a fine game. It's like a little step above the RPG Maker games. Like that's sort of the
that's
vibe
what
I
I'm
got from it.
getting from.
Oof.
So let's see if we're wrong, or if it's a little bit more of than just an okay game. The other game that I've been playing a lot of is Café Enchanté. I'm currently in chapter 4. So this is the fun part where we're still not there in the character route, because this game in particular has a long common route. Probably like 7 to 8 chapters long, maybe more. And the thing is that in the common route, like each character gets their own chapter, like to really shine and get to know them before you really pick a route. In this particular route, we go to the Fairy World Medio, where Canus, the I think he's the term they use to describe him is a Durahar, like one of those headless knights kind of thing. I don't remember the technical name. It has like a proper name in folklore and stuff. So I'll have to look it up and bring it the next time. But I'm pretty much meeting the fairies in this world, and they're kind of scary. Like the newer fairies are kind of like, I'm gonna say they're kind of like innocent in a way, but they don't really know how the world works, especially when they see this human thing they have never seen before, and they don't dimension that, hey, maybe this is fragile and can't fly. I'm saying this because they throw Katane off a cliff in their attempts to teach her like some fun things, and it's like, oh, she doesn't fly. Oh, we're screwed. So if it wasn't for Canus, the Headless Knight, Koronic would be pretty much dead. The other 2 fairies that are kind of like important to the story that are Benia and Titania. Titania being the queen of the fairies, are kind of like the characters that make an actual impact on the story, though they are more participative on Canus's route. So, and since I'm just gonna go through Il's route in this replay, I'm gonna say, if you want to know more, go play Café Enchanté, because it is one of my favorite visual novels. Visual novels, just making that clear. This is gonna be a running joke here.
A novel, visually, no interaction. What?
I don't know if you hear that sigh in the background, but anyway. The final game that I'm playing, and this is where Alex, you're invited to discuss this game because you're playing it too, is Firmly Engage. I am in I just finished chapter 12, and the 2 paralogs I just unlocked like a little while ago. And I have to say, those paralogs are kind of like the kind of interaction that I was expecting the emblems to have, like through the whole game.
Yeah.
But it is very nice that those paralogs are there because as someone that gets the reference is like, hey, that is actually kind of cool. I want more of this.
It's member berries, you know. I remember.
Hmm.
I played that game once.
Yeah, pretty much. So, how far are you in the game?
I'm a lot
Alex?
farther in than
No
you are
spoiler,
at
please.
this point. I'm like chapter 18 or 19 or something like that. Um,
Damn.
yeah, it's getting worse the more I play.
Yikes.
I'm
Yeah.
very disappointed with this Fire Emblem. Um, the story is so fucking stupid in this one. Like dumber than a lot of Fire Emblems have been. There's one main character. You've met the little girl, right, Paula?
It's the
The black and white haired one. I just don't want to say the name
yeah.
to, throw people off the plan. Stupidest goddamn character I've seen in a long time. Like, absolutely, like, basically nothing interesting. They do that fucking. Anyway, they're pulling out these story tropes that have been done so many fucking times in video games, and it's just like, it's so stupid and it's so inane, and it just makes it like completely uninteresting. And then I don't know, the battles are starting to turn into just this like, okay, I guess I have to go turtle up because I have this fucking beast of like 5 characters that I'm gonna have to fight 600 times, because whenever I kill them, they're like, I'm tactical retreat. And you're like, cool, man. So in this game, my guys can die if you kill them, but if I kill you, you just tactically retreat. Cool. Like, it's so like against even the rules of its own thing, because like they realize that if you actually fight bosses in this game, we can't actually kill them because we want to use them later. And so it's like, all right, cool. I guess every battle is fucking meaningless. And they're so strong that if you actually don't want your guys to die most of the time, you either have to grind like crazy, which is not fun. You don't want to go grind in all these skirmishes, so that you can combat them well, or you use tactics, like defensive tactics, essentially, because ultimately you're gonna get snuffed. So I'm just like, I don't know. I just fought a battle where I was like, I don't even give a shit anymore. And I just killed all the enemies. And then there's this last one that was tough. And so I just let that one like kill all my guys and just used my leader to kill them, because I was like, it doesn't matter. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I knew my leader could never die to this character, but this character was just going to murk through everyone else. And so I could like dance around until I like lured her forward. But I'm like, fuck this shit. Let's just run forward with everyone. Who cares if they die? They've all got their experience at this point. Let's just kill them. And it's like, I don't know. I'm fucking so disappointed in this Fire Emblem. It is just a story that doesn't matter, a somnial place that has no meaning, with your characters, and is just like an area to go and do push-ups so you can get +3 strength in your next battle, in the slowest goddamn mini games I've ever played. And then you could, I guess, talk to your people if you wanted to, which consists of pressing a button on them and them saying, I'm hungry. And then you continuing on. And yeah, you got your support conversations, and those are still great. They've always been great. But the Bond conversations are an absolute fucking joke. It's 2 lines of dialogue, and the story is really lame. So I'm done my rant. What do you think, Paula?
On my side, I actually been having a lot more fun than when I played Fire Emblem Fates, especially Pre-Ride and Revelations. I think like the amount of fun that I'm having is kind of like in Conquest. Like the story in Conquest wasn't great either.
Yeah.
There's even though there's very interesting plot points in that game though but again, it wasn't the best story. But in gameplay wise, I've been having a lot of fun. In particular, I'm still dying on this hill that the engage mechanic is very neat, and you can do things and with characters you're not like usually able to do. Like for example, the person back there actually has Louis with the secret ring. So it is not only a tank, it is also a tank that runs. So in that regard, you get a lot more flexibility when you're trying to fill up your army. In my opinion, at the very least.
Hey,
So you
the
are
MacGuffins
either
are fun. I'm not gonna lie on that. They just didn't have to be fucking emblems. You know what I mean? Like it's like they could have been a fucking thorn that you shoved into your finger. It doesn't matter. It's a thing, right? Like it could have been literally anything. Just instead they decided to use nostalgia bait. I'm not cranky, you're cranky.
Hey, nostalgia bait is working for me. So I'm not mad at all. It is fun because I feel like you're like the what's the name of this? Like the ones that are trying to make the Vita game. Like the objective of like the player base they want to buy 3 houses, and I'm the player base that they want to buy engage.
Mhm. And remember, Three
I
Houses
think
was the
dramatically.
best selling Fire Emblem game of all time. They did something
Remember,
right.
I don't like 3 houses.
I know, but you're a dying breed. You already have 20 other Fire Emblem games you can play.
I don't like it when Mummy and Daddy fight.
I want to see them continue and evolve, you know? I don't know. There's just so many Fire Emblem games out there. It's like, I think we can afford to change things up a bit. Like Triangle Strategy did, which you should play soon, Rick.
Yep. I think probably lower in the pecking order than Disgaea and Tactics Ogre, but definitely up there. I mean, it's on my shelf. I have it. It's just a question of getting around to it.
Anyway, sorry, but why don't you tell us more, Paula, about your enjoyment with it? I don't want to totally poop on your parade.
One thing that I'm not sure about is how they changed like the sound mechanics. In the sense of in previous games, most units will have their movement cut in half. Some units will have their movement more affected than others, but usually lighter units will be able to move around easily, as if there was no sound at all, or like without their movement being hindered in reality. And here we have those banks of fluid sound, I think it's called.
Quicksand? I think they're calling it quicksand. And
Sing song.
yeah.
Yeah. And if you try to move out of it, then your movement gets hindered. I think the movement gets like you get like a bigger punishment in a way for being like in the sing song. But the regular sun is more like regular terrain, so I'm not sure what they did there. Because it was fun that some units that were usually weaker or considered weaker got this extra buff in movement, where other units like knights that were usually your powerhouse, but are like you are in the previous game you were forced in a way to use certain kind of units for certain kind of terrains if you wanted to finish the battle like as soon as possible in a way. But here I'm not sure how I feel about the sing song, because I feel it doesn't like really make me strategize on where to put my units. It's more of a nuisance, like, which is weird because I could avoid it and never have my units move slower. But on the other hand, because I know it is there and I know I can avoid it, when I don't, it like whenever I want to put my units like out of reach and it just falls into the stink sand. It kind of feels weird. Like, it feels more like I'm not fully in control of my decisions here, which is which is like the best way I can explain it in that way. And like the enemy units never really go into the stink sand, so it's not like you it's more of a thing you don't want to step on rather than a thing that makes you strategize around. That is what I feel it is. Though I don't know if you think the terrain change over there makes any impact in your gameplay, Alex.
Nah,
Or
dude.
maybe I'm just
No, it was fucking nothing. It was just like, oh, I'm slower, I guess. But like, you know, yeah, you know, you're totally right. Like, because again, the enemies always avoided it, so it was like, oh, guess we're all just gonna go around.
yeah. So it's like just put a river there and put a bridge on somewhere, and you have the same effect pretty much.
Yeah, literally, it was just like water, basically. Yeah, it is what it is. I think I would have preferred, like you said, if just all the sand had an issue with it, because then that becomes an actual new strategic thing that's like, oh well, I fight in the sand area, I need to take certain units if I'm going to be in the sand spot. But nah, they just like, here's more water, basically, but it's quicksand.
Yeah. Which is a shame because like some of the maps, like in Awakening, the maps that were placed on the desert were actually like kind of fun because you were like trying to escape from something while trying to make it to somewhere else. So you have to really think of which units you're gonna put into this battle and how are you gonna make them move. The other thing that I'm missing in not Three Houses, Engage, is being able to pair my units because one of the things that I love to do the most was rescue drop my units. So for example, a slower unit I will pick up with a Pegasus Knight and then move around the Pegasus Knight and just put the unit like way
Oh yeah, I loved the pair
further.
mechanic. That was awesome. That really lets you move your units way faster.
Yeah, so even though some of the rings gives you like more mobility options, like the Seeker ring, which it has to be one of the most fun rings to use, you don't really get that same dynamism, that same dynamic of having your slow unit just sitting there, getting the Pegasus to pick it up and drop it like further into like the first line of battle, and then wreak out with your other unit.
Because it really
which is a
opened up
shame.
yeah, no, totally. Like I was saying, it really opened up the strategy a bit where it's like you can actually like have more dynamic battlefields. I find in this one instead it's just like, all right, we're gonna take 5 turns to get over to this position. Now we're gonna take 5 turns to get over to that position. You know, you're like,
Yeah, the other thing that I think I haven't really realized if there are bonuses for support conversations. Like I haven't been paying attention to that regard. If they're like they finally balanced the hell out of it. Like one thing that I wished I could do was rescue drop my units, even though if not both units can attack like at the same turn because of the rescue drop. Like they have to balance because the thing somewhat because the pair up mechanic was kind of broken.
yeah, but why would you just get rid of it? It's like you introduce something interesting. Why not iterate on it?
Yeah, they should have iterated on it. So one thing that I love now is to use my archers and my mages because they are very powerful.
Yeah, the archers and mages are the most powerful in this game.
And also I have more options to use like clerics or healing units or support units in general because of how they introduce like so many new spells like illuminate and to get rid of fog of war, which is amazing. Anything that lets you deal with fog of war, that is an A+ on my book because I fucking hate fog of war. In Fire Emblem, anyways. And then you have abstract that lets you put a barrier in the terrain, and then you have freeze that lets you kind of like freeze in place an enemy. So your clerics aren't just for heal anymore. Even they also have the usual warp, and I remember the other spell name, but is to allow the spellcaster to have more range of movement. Instead of teleporting someone else, they teleport themselves somewhere else. And then you have all these fun knickknacks to work around with. So I've been having fun in that. And my spellcaster, not a spellcaster, my clerics have been being like a lot more play because of it. So at least I have to have 2 or 3 on my team because of how important they turn out to be. I think that's everything. Oh yeah, and I actually double checked some of the weapon options because back into the weapon triangle discussion, I realized it really matters which weapon you're using, especially when there's terrain involved.
No, I know it matters if you choose a rock or you choose scissors or you choose paper. I get it. It does matter. It's just fucking stupid.
Oh,
And
I get it now.
simplistic. That's all I'm saying. It's just so simplistic. It's like, no, yes, if I am on mountain and my men have axe and me have sword, like it's or whatever it is. I don't even remember. I can't even keep track of the weapon circle. Anyway,
I
you know my
think
opinion
magic,
on it.
yeah. I think magic doesn't have the same immunity to terrain though that it had in Echoes. Because in Echoes, magic was, if here magic was powerful, in Echoes it is faster because since terrain matters the most in Echoes at the time of like trying to pick a fight with someone, magic ignoring everything terrain based is absolutely busted in that game. But here I feel like magic is affected by terrain. It isn't like immune like in other games. So at least I can rest assured, like I can rest knowing that they tried to make magic not that as busted as in other games. So that is my tech tag on balancing Fire Emblem Engage. I hope you like it. Alex, take it away.
All right, AD. Yeah, whatever. You've heard me about Fire Emblem Engage. I'm a cranky old sad man who's very disappointed in his favorite series. Let's see. What else have I been playing? I did play a little more Theatrhythm. I just play it once in a while. You know what I mean? Like when I want a little break from Emblemin' it up, I just pop on a little Theatrhythm, play a couple things. Fun. I'm almost done Dead Space, actually. I am like... I'm on chapter 11, I think, and there's only 12 chapters. So I am like pretty much at the end of it right now. This is a fucking great game. It's just very, very good. It does sort of fall into the same like trap-ish that the first one did, where like, you know, it is survival horror and you are managing your like ammo throughout. But you know, they give you a lot of weapons, so you get to a certain point in the game where like you're not really afraid of what you're encountering, and you're starting to like kind of really plow through hordes of these whatever they call it, necromorphs. So you know, like I don't know. I don't really know the answer to this issue. You know what I mean? Because like ultimately, you want to keep having fun, cool new weapons, and then introducing cool, interesting new enemies. And so like, would I prefer that it scales back and we keep less for longer? Probably not, you know, because like then you would end up likely getting more kind of bored or maybe just frustrated. But it does fall into this a little bit. The weapons that you do get though are sick. They're very fun. They get this thing called a force gun, where it's literally just like blasting out like a giant propellant of air. And dude, that thing is so much fun to use because when you blast it on someone up close, you like see their flesh rip off. Like it's fucking amazing. They just like have like flesh come off and they like turn into these just like bursts of blood. You're like, fucking hell, this game is gory as shit and like so beautifully done. The bosses are a little the bosses are kind of where the game shows its sort of early or I guess mid aughts kind of niche or like thing. I don't know why you want to say it, but like it's a lot of glowy, hit the glowy point. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of that, which they do very well. And like they're very fun, exciting combats, but it is ultimately like 3 glowy things, hit the 3 glowy things. Now you have another phase, hit the 3 glowy things again. Okay, you did it. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of boss pattern. But it looks really fucking cool and it's really fun. So can't complain too much. The anti-grav stuff is still like so good in this. Like it's really, really well done. And actually does kind of like it's really easy to get turned around and be a little confused of where you are, but not in a way that actually interrupts your ability to engage with the game because you can very easily control yourself in space. It just really shows how like if you were to really be like floating through space, how quickly and easily you can lose the horizon and think that you're still like perfectly upright, which is really fun. Like it's just very fun. And there's a lot of silly things you can do. And I just love jetpacking around and like throwing fucking javelins at dudes on the walls. It's great. So yeah, good game. Again, probably too many weapons because you do have to cycle through them quite a bit. Which can get a little frustrating because you only have 4 slots, right? And so it's one of those things where it's like, okay, now I got to swap out and get this other one, and could do with some more hotkeys, but whatever, right? Looks gorgeous. I'm so glad Isaac talks in this now. I can't even remember what it must have been like without him talking because it's so natural in this and really makes him feel like more of a person in the game, and you know, like you're actually playing as somebody. It's been so long that I totally forget the story, though I think I'm having snippets of it coming back to me. But I'm glad that I don't remember it very well. So yeah, I highly recommend this one. You can kind of get it everywhere. It's just really a beautiful remake of this game and just super satisfying. Also, the sound design in this is so well done. Like it is phenomenal. Everything has this like weighty punch to it. Even just you're walking around the ship has that like satisfying clunk clunk space sound, you know, like this idea of almost like grab boots. Like you just everything feels very weighty and like it's all like really tangible, which is something that not a lot of games could do accurately, you know. But this one does it very nice. So that's Dead Space. I did start Resident Evil 4 Remake. I've played up to and like basically to the title, so that's like when you get through the village for the first time. And then I was like, okay, no, I should stop and I should really beat Dead Space before I dive into this because I was like, if I don't, I'm just gonna leave that on the back burner, and it's like I'm just gonna beat that first. I started on hardcore mode, but hardcore mode, similarly to Resident Evil Village, is just a load of bullshit in the sense that it's like apparently even one of my favorite Sphere Hunter talks about in her review. There's literally a boss that is busted on hardcore mode. It's just like legitimately broken. And like she reached out to Capcom and stuff because she actually has a relationship with them, and they're like, oh, do you like trying to figure out if they know what's going on. But like, yeah, it's just straight up busted. So I'm like, yeah, I think I'm not gonna do hardcore because hardcore, you know, it says on the thing when you boot it up, it's like, you know, assisted is like for those who've never played survival, right? Normal is for those who haven't played Resident Evil 4 GameCube, and then it was like hardcore is if you've played the 2005 GameCube or like, you know, Resident Evil version. And I was like, I've played it many times. You know, I was like 4 fucking times at this point. So I was like, oh, I'll do that one. But what they meant, because I thought, okay, maybe what they're gonna do is they'll have like subtle subversions maybe in the hardcore mode for those who've played it before. But no, that's just what the game does in general. And hardcore mode just means now you got to put 10 shots into a guy. You know, like it's just the increasing their bullet sponginess, which to me isn't actually very fun. Like Resident Evil 4 is an action horror game, right? It's not really a full-on survival horror. And yeah, if you bump up the difficulty, it becomes a little more like a survival horror because you're expending more ammunition. But like, is that fun per se? Like, you really just have to shoot things a lot. And I'm gonna be real with you here. It doesn't feel good. You don't feel like you're like, ooh, this is so much more interesting now that I am going to get killed very quickly and have to shoot a guy more times than before. It's just not as fun. So I don't really recommend the hardcore mode, especially not for your first time going through it. Like, Resident Evil 4 is meant to be replayed, right? Like, they give you these completion bonus stuff. You unlock a bunch of things for later playthroughs. I think then going into hardcore is probably good. But like, unless you're obsessed with Resident Evil like I am, you probably haven't played Resident Evil 4 in a long time, if ever. And you likely, if you're a fan of Resident Evil 4, probably haven't played it in a number of years. You're not going to remember that much. So just stick with Standard. Standard is it's keenly balanced. You're still likely to die at least, a few times going through, but it doesn't feel unfair, I don't know. Resident Evil 4 didn't even have difficulties. They just scaled the difficulty as you played, which I thought was dope, and I kind of wish they would do that in this one too, but whatever. Anyway, that's Resident Evil 4 Remake. It's great. You should play it. But Rick, what are you playing?
So I'm going to split my playing up into two segments, the first of which is the mobile block. I've been playing a lot more of Daily Dadish, and they've changed a few things, so I want to talk about that again a little bit more. Firstly, fucking sucks that you can only play the level on the day and then it's gone. In the same breath, I actually kind of like that because it does incentivize me just to dip in for a couple of minutes each day. It's a nice little thing. My hope is that at the end of the year, the dev just throws his hands up and says, cool, all the levels are available now. Thank you for coming on this ride with me. But we'll see. A neat thing they've now added as well is a leaderboard for the day. So you can see where your time ranks in the global leaderboard. It's worth saying, I play my levels in the morning. I tend to be sort of top 50, top 100 worldwide. I am also very, very good at games. I'm on a gaming podcast. It's a prerequisite. So one or both of those things contribute to that. It's still Dadish and it's still great. I've also played a lot, and I mean, like, it's borderline a problem, a lot of Marvel Snap. They know how to make those games addictive now.
They gotcha.
Like, they've got me. The missions reload thrice daily. I'm there. You've got the season pass. I'm on that now. Doesn't help that, again, I've got a few IRL friends who play it as well. So it's like a water cooler discussion sort of component to it as well. It is a very nicely set up card game. Rounds are really, really quick. There is a lot of room for expression and tinkering in the way that you play. And there are a lot of location effects that really, really throw curveballs in your strategies and make you think on the fly. No two games are the same because of the way they interact and because some of the card effects specifically interact with them in turn. So it does make it a very interesting time from that perspective. I can sort of see the raised eyebrow towards the wallet, but that's having played it really, really consistently for a few weeks. I do think the game is actually very freeloader friendly. I know that's a sentiment that I had at the beginning. I continue to have it. I think it's very, very freeloader friendly, which I think is a good thing in a game like this. Last game of the mobile block, Desta, The Memories Between. I've played a little bit more of it. I think this is the kind of game that probably, even when it comes out on Switch and PC, you would probably enjoy more as a mobile experience. It's clearly been designed with that in mind. Again, anyone who has a Netflix account, you have this game for free through Netflix. You also have 12 minutes, so not everything they give away is good, but this is quite good so far. I actually, sidebar, had a friend complete 12 minutes on my sort of recommendation through Netflix. And they were a lot softer on it than we were. They also took, about twice as long as we all did, but they were like, yeah, it was okay. don't know if I like the direction they went with the story. I was like, yeah,
That's a
yeah,
fucking
fair enough.
understatement.
Exactly. And thus ends the mobile block. Outside of those, I have 1, 2, 3 regular games I'm playing, games on proper consoles for big boys and girls. First of those, FF7 Remake. Played a couple of hours more than that. I don't know what it is about the game because I think it's fantastic. I think it's a really well put together game. I like the way that the RPG systems on top of the actiony sort of setup have slowly been layered on top. It feels like a very gradual progression in terms of complexity and also in terms of what's required of you in skill and competence with the battle system. I don't seem to, whether it's where my life is at the moment, whether it's because I'm very, very handheld centric at the moment, I don't seem to be able to put more than 10 or 15 minutes together at a time to play it. So progress has been very, very slow. It is a really good game. I'm just taking my sweet time with it. Conversely, Muramasa Rebirth, after my little scare with my Vita memory card, I am already way past where I was when I lost my original save. This game's phenomenal. It's an 11 out of 10 if ever there was one, and I am loving revisiting it. Enough said. Final game, and this is one I started recently, but I've had and intended to play for a long, long time, and finally I followed through on that. This is South Park: The Stick of Truth. And Alex and I were talking about this very briefly before we started recording. It is the rare example of a game where, as Alex put it, the IP really does justify the game. And the game is fine. It's not bad. It is a very bare bones turn-based RPG, like a party RPG, not a strategy type thing. With very sort of clear indicators of where you're supposed to be going at any given time for any given quest. But you can really tell that the original creatives behind South Park were heavily involved in this game. I know that was a marketing point in the lead up to original release, but you feel it in the minute to minute in the way the humor lands, in the visuals, in the faithfulness of this game towards the source material, and in the sheer depth of the references that are thrown in and brought through. In the first half hour, you've got presidential candidate Al Gore asking you to put 3 masts up in 3 specific places to help him find Man Bear Pig. Yes. And it ties beautifully into the game's sort of friend system. It like has a parody social media thing. He's like, I'm going to add you as a friend on Facebook. That's very important. You should know that. And it toes the line like the series does as well. So I knew this was a thing going in, but for anyone who didn't, you have 4 character class options in this game: Rogue, Mage, Warrior, and Jew.
Oh yeah, god damn.
And when you pick Jew, which I did, because it's the equivalent of a monk, and I figured that'd be an interesting one to do. Cartman says, and I quote, "Oh, so I guess we'll never really be friends then."
Yeah, Cartman's
the game goes hard, and I kind of am impressed that they managed to get away with that. Even in 2011, 2012, when this game came out, it's a big swing. But the Duke class is actually pretty good. You have ranged and short range combat options. I think that's all of the classes to varying degrees, because the combat's designed to be very accessible. The abilities are quite good. I feel like I'm rambling here. I like it. I'm not super far in. It doesn't seem like it's a massive game either. How long to beat have it around the sort of 10, 12 hour mark, which is nice length for a shorter RPG. And I think this is the kind of game that really could have overstretched if it tried to pad out for a conventional sort of length.
Yeah, it should be said too that like the thing with this game is that even if you don't know South Park well, they do such a good job of introducing you to its world that you'll have a great time regardless. Like,
Mm.
you know, I was never like I like South Park and I have watched a fair bit of South Park, but I'm not a religious watcher of it, right? Like a lot of my life was a lot of my knowledge of it has just been like pop culture or references or whatnot, right?
Member berries, if you will.
Exactly. But I still had a great time, and in fact, it kind of got me to watch a few more episodes. So it probably did what they wanted.
Mm. The best tie-ins do. I always think back to The Wolf Among Us for that sort of thing.
Yeah, I started reading Fables.
And yeah, I'm due a reread. To be fair, that series is fantastic. But yeah, I think I definitely second the idea that the game is accessible even without a knowledge of the source material. Obviously, the conceit is that all the kids of South Park are playing this sort of D&D LARP and fighting over a MacGuffin called the Stick of Truth. And you're a new kid who's just moved to town, so you have this slightly softer version of the Amnesiac protagonist where everyone is new to you. Another highlight of mine is that... Sorry, go on.
No, nothing. I was just saying, yeah, I remember Cartman with the new kid all the time.
Yep, and there's quite a few fun bits from the beginning. So when you put your name in, he says, "Oh, so you want to be called Douchebag?" And you click no. And he says, "So you're sure Douchebag is your final answer?" And you click no. And he says, "Welcome, Douchebag." And Douchebag is what he calls you. And your character's fictional parents sort of kick you out of the house. They're like, "Right, go make some fucking friends." Close the door. If you go back into the house, there are some fun noises coming from their bedroom.
It's great.
You can see why your dad was so keen for you to go and play with the neighborhood kids. That sense of humor absolutely carries the experience. I am having a blast with this. I'm maybe 90 minutes in, so again, not super far, but far enough that I've touched on a few of the little bits of side content. I think I've got a feel for how combat generally works, and I'm looking forward to experiencing the rest of the game over the coming weeks. I think that's everything from me, which means that's everything in terms of our currently playings. So that brings us nicely onto the topic this week. And this week we thought we'd talk about games going defunct and storefronts going defunct, and I suppose just think a little bit around that. Tonight is the 26th. Tomorrow, so it's already happened by the time you'll be listening to this, the 3DS and Wii U stores are gone. Totally. And that is for updates, purchase of new stuff. In theory, you'll still be able to download existing games for the time being. I will be surprised if that facility exists forever. And it will also be interesting to see what that does for the preservation efforts and communities that offer means of downloading those games without Daddy Nintendo's approval.
Yeah, well, did you see what Gerard the Completionist did?
Yes, I certainly did. Man dropped a disgusting amount of money to try and buy and procure all of the games.
And he did. He got all of them for 3DS and the Wii U, and he sent them for to can't remember who it was, but for game preservation. So at least we got that going.
Yeah,
it's a shame someone
it's
had to do
the Industry Foundation or something. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, it's just stupid that like that's how it had to be done. You know what I mean? Like just someone who has like the means and ability to get them all right. It's like otherwise those were just gonna go bye and hope that someone had a ROM of it somewhere.
Even he, depending on what happens to his Wii U console, because those things are dropping like flies at the moment with NAND flashes dying and things corrupting. It's a whole thing in the news cycle, or has been in the last week coming into this recording. Really, what we need is when you can't sell it anymore, or where you won't want to sell it anymore, those games have to be considered abandonware, and legally there have to be protections in place. Now, that's besides the point, but the point really is we're looking at losing lots of games. And we mentioned Flash briefly. Flash is another one where there was, I think, a similar preservation effort, but these efforts usually will fall short. And I think with the Completionist in particular, with this current situation, some games had already been delisted from the stores because companies hadn't chose to re-up their licenses for them to be there. So there were games dropping off the store as they were trying to purchase them.
Yeah, and I suppose like realistically, there's always a certain amount of art that that's gonna slip through the cracks, especially when it comes to companies that go bankrupt or get into legal issues and they have to like drop their games and whatnot, which is like that's fair. That happens, right? It's more these like larger systemic, like with like Flash games, right? Like the sudden just complete bye bye of them all, and really it is sad because like, though I guess also with Flash games, it is a bit of a different situation too, where like many Flash games, pretty much all Flash games, except some, they're not released with the idea of like commercial success, right? Like it is very much more a kind of indie, grassroots ish type games, right? Wherein the idea of them lasting a long time was probably bananas to most people in general, right? Like it's like, oh, I barely thought anyone would even see my game.
Yeah.
And it's put into a sea of Flash games. But I also think, and I don't know if it's still the same today, like, little internet games, but it does feel to me like there was a period of time, especially when I was growing up, like middle school, high school, in the aughts and whatnot, where Flash games was like the testing ground for future game developers, and we saw a lot of games that crossed the threshold. But man, like I realize it is such a different era because I teach in high school, right? I see what kids are playing because they're in my class and they have Chromebooks, and of course they'll fuck off and they want to play. They're gonna play something. They're gonna be on their goddamn phone, and they're gonna start playing Genshin Impact. God damn, the fact that Genshin Impact can be fucking like, what a different world gaming is now, right? Like we would try to go on Miniclip or Newgrounds or some shit and play, or Addicting Games or whatever, and we would play Flash games. That was what we could do. Now these kids just go on their computer, they play like chess, or they have like full 3D games that they can play on Chromebooks, for fuck's sakes, in browsers. So it is I don't know, it was like a flash in the pan moment that had a lot of meaning. But I don't know, what do y'all think?
I remember that beautiful middle ground when mobile games were first becoming a thing. The days of Tap Tap Revenge and Doodle Jump and all those little things sort of popping into the middle.
Yeah, and Plants vs. Zombies.
And Plants vs. Zombies, absolutely.
Which
I was going to say something.
Many are defunct because they're iOS and
yeah, and that, I think that sort of ties into the 3DS and Wii thing, right? Like it's a unique situation now. It's never been something in the industry before where entire storefronts are disappearing, and that I think that's the concerning thing. Either entire storefronts or entire swathes of content within the storefront. So iOS specifically, I think it was when they dropped the 32-bit libraries from their OS, and unless a developer made a point of updating said library to support it, that app just ceased to function.
It would just
and and that will be a thing again. Although there has been some progress made in actual legacy iOS emulation, which is a first.
I feel like there's something with Super Monkey Ball or whatever. They've like just like unlocked something.
Yeah, so a developer managed to find a way to clean room reverse engineer the Monkey Ball app and the way that it was working, and get that set up specifically. Seems the work that they've done is going to be cross-portable, something that can be applied to other apps on a case-by-case basis. Because what it does is it doesn't emulate iOS itself. It specifically recreates the environment in which that app can run, and allows its functions to map out. I suppose in a way it's quite similar to what the various Vita ports have been doing, the Android to Vita ports, where you're taking the native code, you are essentially converting that code into something that can be run on the new platform. It's like a really, really low level emulation on a per application basis.
Cool.
Says the layman. I hope I've not got that horribly wrong. If I have, let me know in the comments or on the forums or in the Discord or wherever you can find me.
Fellow layman.
But that's the danger, right? It sounds close enough to right that you just accept it without question. and I've probably got something fundamentally wrong. But the point being, it can be done, and that in and of itself is a massive step forward.
Yeah. And it doesn't help that Nintendo are just like fucking shite when it comes to keeping their stuff accessible. Like, you can hate on like even fucking Sony is a little bit better. They've been getting much better these days. It's still rough, but they're getting better. Microsoft, I think, is clearly the winner when it comes to maintaining and keeping things up, because like the stores, I can buy things from the Xbox era on there. You know what I mean? Like it's like literally the only ones you can't buy is if it's just like, well, the licenses are gone, and so this person can't sell this game anymore, or it just doesn't work, right? And then they still work on it, but it's one of those things where it's like if these companies, and again, you can't expect that from all these companies, right? Like Microsoft obviously has the resources, but I also don't want to have a world where it's just like, oh, all video game companies are under three mega corporations that can afford to do this. You're like, can we have a third party that does all of this game preservation? And I know there are some out there.
And I think some of that is like a commercial thing, right? Like if you maintain the virtual console, who's going to sign up for NSO, play NES games on a recurring monthly basis?
I know. And they're so bad.
Yeah, they have to like wipe the other options of you playing the game so they can sell you these options they really want to sell you on.
And I think that's what's an interesting sort of comparison versus Flash. Flash is just, like you say, it wasn't ever a commercial product. It's just a case of it was an endlessly exploitable Swiss cheese piece of software that needed to be disabled. And that was unfortunately one of the consequences.
Yeah. And
another thing.
Go ahead, Paula.
Another thing that I just remembered. Do you remember that time before smartphones? Sorry, I'm being an old lady right now.
Wait, before smartphones?
Before smartphones, yeah.
There was time? Sorry, go on. I'll stop.
I was like, who's going to talk first?
That one time.
Yeah.
I kind of remember that one time where I showed my nephew my GBA, and he was like, "How do you play in that thing? Why does it look so crunchy?"
Like, hold me back. Anyway, I'm going to punch a kid. He's not wrong.
So, before smartphones, and in the era of phones still having actual buttons to push, like an actual number keyboard thingy. And I remember downloading and playing some games like from my computer, and with a USB just transferring them to my phone. And one of them was How to Train Your Dragon game that I don't know who made it, but it was actually kind of fun. It was a very short game, but like no longer than half an hour, at most an hour, but I think it was like half an hour play. And I remember having a lot of fun with it. And there was like someone ported, I think, a GBA game from the era on GBA game. I don't remember really. I'm assuming it was the Aragon GBA game, but whatever. To phone, it sucks. But still, they went through the effort to actually putting this game into a phone just as a passion project. Like they get no money at all, and still it works.
Yeah,
sucks, but it exists.
Yeah, I feel like we're at the point now where technology is advancing so rapidly that we're losing more and more stuff, just faster and faster and faster, right? And like it does seem like we are slightly consolidating into a few different types of operating systems and whatnot, right? Like there is like a slight commonality to it, but even then, I just look at how fast these generations are going, and the fact that like now I think realistically we're at the point where the first console to have had its own online like store really is like really retro now, right? Like when you think of like the Wii and like I guess the Xbox had it a little bit, but like Wii was one of the first ones for me at least that felt like it had like a genuine.
Sorry.
What the hell is that?
That's me knocking my microphone over like a klutz.
Rick's going.
I'm sorry.
But like,
oh no,
that's fine. The Wii is retro as hell now, and so it's like, like it is like when you think about it, because like when did that come out?
06 is approaching
That's
20
really
years.
old.
Yeah, it's almost 20 years. So at this point, I'm like, that's fucking retro, man. Like, if not, it's certainly old when it comes to gaming. And so to think that that is happening now, it's like, all right, well, we are now in the era where like these stores are going to start coming down, and like I don't think we've ever really properly planned for this. Like no companies I think really thought, oh, what does it mean to have all these servers open?
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing about the one thing that the closure of the Wii U and 3DS stores has over the WiiWare store is that the WiiWare store, you can't even download anything anymore. Like the moment you weren't able to buy games anymore was the moment the store died completely. Though I have to say, I feel like the 3DS and Wii U are gonna follow soon, like in the not being able to download stuff.
Oh, I bet by the end
Eventually,
of the
for
year you won't be
sure.
able to download things. Like I'm certain it's coming very fast. Like here's the thing too,
Yeah.
like Wii's channel, like Wii's shop channel and whatnot was tiny, right? Like comparative to the Wii U and 3DS, yeah, there were games you could buy and download, but then a lot of them were just virtual console games, right? So it was like, well, we already have these preserved. And then the WiiWare library itself, not that big, right? It's just not. Versus when you enter onto the Wii U and the 3DS, even as we saw with Gerard's, it's like, okay, now we're talking like these are full fucking online shops that have been up for about a decade now. So there's a lot of shit on there. And a lot of shit we've missed probably, right? Like there's just no one keeping track of what the hell goes up on there because Nintendo got a little free and loose with what was allowed on there by the end.
And that continued with the Switch. My God.
Holy hell, did it ever. The Switch.
Of course, with the
Imagine
Switch.
when these fucking shops go down. Holy hell. The amount of shit that's on there.
Wow. As long as they preserve Hentai Universe, the Mahjong tile completing games, I'm happy. Whatever it fucking. Anyway, the looking forward, the uniquely scary thing I think for Wii U and 3DS is that hardware wise, those are going to be hard to emulate. Because
Well,
if you've lost a PS2 game, when you emulate it, it's just buttons, no problem. Emulating the 3D effect to the extent that people care, I'm one of the people that does. It's almost impossible. Emulating the Wii U with a double screen setup, it's an additional complicating factor, particularly when you've got to then factor in gyroscopic stuff, amiibo functionality. There are a lot more moving parts to maintaining these games in the way they were originally intended to be.
I will say I don't think it's as much of an issue with the Wii U as it might seem. Like I've been, because your boy's getting a Steam Deck soon here, and it has Wii U emulation down pat. And there's many ways to access the second screen. You could literally have it on the, like I said, smaller one next to you. You can filter through. Like they've figured this out, and it's got gyro controls built in. So, like, yeah, it's been figured out. So like it's one of those ones where like I see what you mean. I actually think your point about the 3DS and the 3D though, I think that's really that's a much more key one where it's like, yeah, you can't emulate that because that's straight up a hardware feature. That's just not going to happen. And I think you're right that you can't emulate necessarily the same user experience of the Wii U, right? But I guess that's also the issue with a lot of, that's the issue with every single game you emulate in a sense, right? But I think it's like you said, it's much more pronounced with the Wii U and the 3DS in general. Yeah, but they're Nintendo consoles, so there's a trillion 3DSs out in the wild.
But not as many Wii U's though.
For good reason.
For Wii U, I love that system.
Look, me too. I got one. I love it. But they fucked up.
You just don't make it difficult for the developer because you want
Seriously?
developers for the system to sell more systems.
Right? Why would you explicitly make it hard on them? So weird.
Right. So, I mean, have we got any particular more thoughts on this? That was a great sentence I just put together.
Nah.
Paula?
Not really.
Okay, I guess it's time for How Long to Beat the Game. This is, I think, we said we were going to do one more round.
Well, round means like the 3 weeks. So this is
Yeah.
the first week of the last 3 games.
It's the final game week of this round of the new format of the game.
No, you're making it the wrong way. This is week 1
Is
of
it?
the last 3 weeks of the round because I'm the
Yeah,
beginning.
the last 3 weeks, game week.
What? Game week? You keep saying week.
So a game week is where like a full session of games are played. A game week is 3 rounds.
Is that a sports thing?
That's a sports thing.
That's why you got me. I don't know sports.
I can normie.
You can't. Yeah, you can't hit me like that. I know how to play sports, not how to watch them, which is funny.
I swear I've used the term game week for months, and this is the first time it's.
Then I have been misinterpreting it the
ignored.
entire
Right,
time.
okay. My God.
I think the whole
only
time I've
say
been. Yeah.
The game week was. I don't know if it's just coincidence or just me thinking it is coincidence, but I think you only ever say game week, like your final game week, when it is the final actual week.
The final week in that game week, maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that's what I think has happened. So that's what's had me confused a little bit, I think. So anyway, that's a long, rambly way to show that I'm an idiot. So let's keep going when it comes to sports. All right,
It's you hosting, Alex. I'm trying to give you all the time to get it.
I know, I've got it.
Running.
Dynasty Warriors 7.
Ooh,
Holy
okay.
crap.
What you're doing.
Oh,
You're
no.
doing Dynasty Warriors 7.
And for new and returning listeners, what that means is Paula and I are competing for 5 points in total. The first 3 of those are split 1 each for getting the closest guess to main plus, and 100% times, as listed on howlongtobeat.com. And then there's 2 more points tied to a dealer's choice question. Dealer this week is Alex. Alex, have you got any ideas on what that would be?
Yeah.
Before I look up anything.
Yeah, okay, I do have an idea. Although, okay, you need to be careful that you don't look for this, but I want you to tell me month, day, year this was released in Europe.
Ooh,
In Europe.
okay.
Yeah.
Shit.
Month, day, and year that this was released in Europe. Because, I think this is fun. So be careful when looking stuff up.
What platforms is this released on?
I feel like that's gonna cheat a little too much, but that's gonna help you guys a lot, I think.
I mean, indulge me.
All right, I guess you could find that easily. So it's on PS3 and 360.
Okay.
Kind of the era that we were talking about before.
Yeah.
We'll see who remembers when those. But those consoles are out for a long time.
They certainly were.
I mean, if you're Tiamat, you're still just making your way through that backlog.
Oof.
Hey, he knows. He has the patient gamer strat.
It's the way to do it.
Yeah, you
I
wait.
can't really say anything, can I? I've been playing Front Mission from the Nintendo DS this week. So
I think a little similar in some regards to that. But then again, I also like to buy new hardware. So fucking Steam Deck was 10% off. I was like, oh shit, I gotta.
That's a thought. Have I had an email from Playdate? I'm still waiting on my Playdate.
I know. I'm waiting for you to get it so I can jump back in. Because I figured
Ah,
I waited long enough, so I might as well wait for you. Because that's might as well.
They said April, May. So
Okay, well that's coming though. Also, that's
It's
perfect
coming, you're
time of the
right.
year for it because it's so tiny. You can take it around with you when you're out and about, going fun places in the summer.
mean, it's going to arrive after my holiday this year. I'm holidaying in the Easter holidays. So,
yeah.
but in time for summer with that beautiful anti-glare screen. So
It works
we'll
really
see.
well outside. Do we
So-
have our
so,
stuff here? I see. I
I've
have
got
a
all my
couple
times. My times are all in.
I'm trying to
Paula doesn't have
guess
time.
the release date because I have the other stuff, but I don't have the release date yet.
Well,
Okay. There you go.
Okay. So let's figure this out here. All right. So, for main story, Paula has said 20 hours and 30 minutes. Rick has said 6 hours.
How
Wow.
badly have I undershot it?
Pretty bad. It's 23 hours. That's the main. Yeah. So that point's going to go to Paula, which is getting her ever closer to my 14 points. 12 now. Okay.
She's probably got more coming. Yeah.
I think so. For main plus, Rick has said 18 hours. Paula said 45 hours and 30 minutes. It is, in fact, 41 hours and a half. So that's going to Paula again there. Oh, she's creeping up. And the last one. This one might be closer. Let's see. So Paula, for 100%, has said 115 hours and 30 minutes. Rick has said 90 hours. Oh, this one actually is a lot closer. Let's see. It is... But it's 113 hours. So Paula's only off by 2 hours and a half. So that's going to put Paula at tied with me at 14. So then let's see Rick. Let's see if Rick can
I claw a little bit back?
around here. So Paula has said November 9th, 2011. And Rick has said
October
10th, 2010.
2010.
Yeah.
All the 10s, I think it'd be in and around there.
Interesting. I need to count something really quickly here.
Oh wow, are we that close?
Yeah, you really are.
Oh, the suspense
Wow.
is killing me.
Okay. This is interesting. So, the release date that the actual release date is April 8th, 2011,
Okay.
which actually puts you closer. Because you said you said October, right? Yeah, so November. No, maybe. Are you guys equal? November, December.
We can't be,
January,
surely.
February, March, April. That's 6 months. So then April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. No, you are 1 month ahead of Paula. Paula is 7 months off, and you are 6
Damn
months
it.
off. Wow.
Oh,
And almost exactly, because you said 9 and 10, so you're basically the exact in the area. Okay, wow. So that puts Rick at 9. Damn, that was way closer than I thought. I was looking at that shit and I was like, oh god, I have to count fucking months now.
a photo finished this week in how long to beat the game.
Yeah, because it makes it look like Paula is the one who's closer, right? Because she's in 2011. But it's all about them months when you put it in there, you know? That's the tricky biz. Sick. Well, that is it for this week. Thanks for tuning in. The scores, I should say now. Paula and I are tied 14-14, which doesn't make that look... It's kind of anyone's game at this point, but I still have 2 rounds that I get to play, so we'll see how we do here. I have to really tank it against you, Rick, which has happened before.
And based on how I played this week is very, very unlikely to happen, but we'll see.
You never know. All right, that's it for this week. See y'all next week. Toodle.
Peace.
Edu, Sai, Kanguru.
What?